Tamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Topic matter will be verse 3, which will talk about the effects of having no faith in the Shastra, or taking it without wanting to believe it because it contradicts our own life experience. So we will see the consequences of that. And then verse 4 and 5 will talk about the essence of the Upanishads. So today we will officially get into the teaching of Advaitam. What is the definition of non-dualism? So, revision, and then we will begin the verses. Chapter 9 speaks about Ishvara Jnanam, that means the knowledge of the total, deals with the higher nature and the lower nature of Ishvara. The higher nature in chapter 7, we have called it Para Prakriti, the reality which is beyond time and space. It is not subject to that which can come and go. This means it is divisionless. It doesn't have divisions. It is changeless. Because if you think about only time and space is what attributes change. It's what attributes division. Something begins and something ends. Thus there is a division. It's absolute. That means there's no higher reality than the higher reality that we're speaking of. And the lower nature, in chapter 7, we have called Apara Prakriti. And this is a reality that is relative to time and space. So this reality and time and space are in the same order of reality. And consequently, it is subject to division and adjustment. So whenever we think of the lower reality, anything in the lower order of reality can change, can divide, can particularize, can vary in intensity, can be modified, and it also undergoes the two conditions of manifest and unmanifest. That means it is here, and then it's not here. And then it is here again, and then it's not. The nature of it is constantly going into manifest and out of manifest, constantly, eternally. Now, per the Upanishad, we call the higher nature Brahman. And the Upanishads calls the lower nature Maya. So we're using different texts, and different texts will cover in different terms. So I'm just bringing it together so we're not confused. And also, chapter 9 is making a promise to impart both the higher knowledge and the lower knowledge. If you remember, the higher knowledge is Vijnanam, which means direct knowledge. That means Aparoksha Jnanam. That means knowledge that is directly ascertained as self. It is not something that I'm holding as an image which I've read in a book and then I'm talking about it. It is I and that are one. Even the statement won't even come up because there will also be another division. And this knowledge is also called Advaitam. So Vijnanam equals Advaitam. And Advaitam means not two, which means it is the higher nature because we said it is divisionless. We cannot divide it. Otherwise, if we do divide it, it becomes lower knowledge, which is called Jnanam. And this knowledge is called Dvaitam, that which can be divided because it has pairs of opposites. It has this and that. So these two knowledges are being revealed in chapter 9. Also, the reason why chapter 9 is called Raja Vidya, we spoke about this last week. Raja Vidya, which means the king of knowledge. Now you're asking, why is this knowledge, Ishvara Jnanam, the king of knowledge? And we established because any branch of knowledge other than Raja Vidya, this means self-knowledge, any branch of knowledge has two inherent flaws, and that is, it is always incomplete, right? So no matter how much you learn about any topic, someone's always going to outdo us. Someone's got to be a better degree, a better education or something. So we can't ever complete anything that we know, and that produces constant agitation, like I'm not good enough because I don't know. And also forgetting. So even if you're top in your field of area, you know, these sports players, even they lose their skill, get beaten by someone else. Even someone who's the best particular scientist in a specific degree or a doctor, then eventually someone else comes and they're number one. So no one ever stays in number one position. So these two inherent flaws are inherent in every single branch of knowledge in the universe, other than Raja Vidya. Now, why is that? Because Raja Vidya, we call this Sarva Vidya Pratishta. So Pratishta means the foundation. In other words, all of these branches of knowledge are depending upon a foundation for them to be validated and illumined. Without Pratishta, it's like without this wall, then no matter what shines, no matter how good of knowledge this branch of knowledge is shining, it's not going to get a chance to be demonstrated unless there is a Pratishta, a substratum upon which it can be illumined by. So in the same way, Raja Vidya is that knowledge which all these branches of knowledge depend on. And once ascertained, it is never forgotten. So that's what we talked about last week. And also, the word Raja Guhyam, okay, the king of secrets. So why is this the secret? The secret of all secrets. There are two conditions to acquire any knowledge. And we've said it is a pramana, a pratyaksha pramana, that is, we can only acquire something through the means of our five senses. That means I can only see something by picking it up through my eyes or hearing it. And the second means of knowledge, so this is through the senses. And the second is anumana. Okay, so pratyaksha pramana and anumana pramana. Anumana means through inference, inferential logic. So even though I don't see an apple falling, I can still infer on the basis of it having a force that is interacting with another object. Based on that, I can infer, well, there must be some force called, and then I name it, I give it a nama rupa called gravity. So these both are discernible through what we have, that is our senses and our minds. However, this knowledge, the self-knowledge, is beyond. Why? Because both of these go where? Antahkarana, the mind, the subtle body. And the subtle body is that which is illumined by pratishtana. In other words, by the substratum. So in other words, no matter how much we look or infer, we're still not going to discern Raja Vidya, the king of knowledge. Now, in order to gain both and to assimilate both, there are qualifications. And some of the qualifications, the main one which Krishna will be expounding is in verse 3, is Shraddha, which is faith. In order to get out of samsara, that is to assimilate Raja Vidya and Raja Guhyam, to gain this knowledge, we need first of all an axe. Can you cut a tree with a blunt axe? No way. Now, Vairagyam, you already know, dispassion. Now, put the word dispassion away. A new term which should be a little bit more clear. Vairagyam simply means having a distaste for worldly objects. For example, suppose I have a taste for rainbows. Like I have a distaste for everything except the rainbow. Is a rainbow lower order of reality or higher order of reality? It's apara prakriti, it's matter. It's just a bunch of molecules interacting with the particles in the air. So in other words, if I have a taste for one single thing in this world, what do I have a taste for? Samsara. Thus I get samsara. So in other words, vairagyam is simply knowledge to assimilate that everything in this world is of the one same essence, para prakriti, matter. So in order to sharpen this axe, I need to cut the tree of samsara, I need to establish a great distaste for the world. Warning, distaste does not mean hating the world, or it does not mean in any way of, just derogatory sense. It just means I see what the world is, but it doesn't really fascinate me that much, like a child or anything. Now the next tool that we need is, for example, this handle is Brahma Vichara, which means Vichara means contemplation or inquiry, self-inquiry. Now suppose you've got all of the dispassion in the world, but then what's the point? Why am I having dispassion? So the answer why comes from Brahma Vichara. That means I need knowledge to support why is it that one needs to be dispassionate towards the world. The next one is Sadguna. Sadguna means is having good or fruitful or virtuous gunas. In other words, one does not want to have a life full of tamasic opportunities or rajasic opportunities. Suppose there's a nightclub that's very nearby and it's very tempting to go there. So the person generally decides to go every single week, and that in itself ends up having a non-conducive sattvic mind. So this means lifestyle also is very important. And last one is prapti or sharanagati, and this means faith. The point is, what motivates a person to cut the tree of samsara? Is it Brahma Vichara, contemplation? Well, not really. Is it vairagyam, dispassion? Not really. Is it having good gunas? Not really. What if I have no trust? What if I say, what's the point of doing all this? Is it just for this lifetime, or is it just to actually sever the birth and rebirth process? So in other words, I need faith to understand that the Shastra has offered a solution, and I need to trust that solution, despite having no immediate proof that it's going to work. Otherwise, if I don't have that faith, then I'm just not going to use neither the Brahma Vichara, nor the Vairagyam, nor the Sadguna. So that faith is very important. In verse 3, Krishna is going to expound this further. Ashraddhadhana purushaha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. Despite this Ishwara Jnanam being freely and openly available to us, in many ashrams we can go and we will have a whole bunch of Upanishads and yoga books and different ways of practice, sadhana, and especially on the internet, wherever we look, this will be freely available as PDF documents and audios, Swami recordings. It is all out in the open. And despite that fact, people reject it outright. Why? If something is so freely available, why do we reject what is so open to us every single day?
Lack of trust.
Lack of trust, yeah, that's it.
Fear.
Fear, yeah, because I may find something that's going to scare me, something about myself. And what if this is wrong? So all of these little conditions come in. And one of the main reasons why we don't trust, when I say we, don't take it personally, I'm just including everyone. One of the reasons is because anything that is free, you see already, you know. Yeah, instantly, right? It can't, like, if it's free, it can't be good, right? Only paid stuff is good, right? So this is a general mindset, especially today in our world of marketers and commercialism. We're sort of, but it was even in the Vedic times, the same thing.
No such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
It's free though.
Huh?
That we breathe is free.
I know, right?
So that's taken away with one.
And it's very ironic, right? The most free stuff, like air and food the plants grow, is free. The most essential is free. And things like, king-size bed, makeup, wonderful vehicle, all of these things are non-essential, and yet they what? They cost. So we seem to take for granted everything that is free and also the most essential. This seems to be the human nature. Another example, you know what dowry is? So suppose that a boy wants to get married and he wants to accept a girl without accepting any dowry. In other words, dowry just means when parents offer some value to the boy just to demonstrate that there's care there. Suppose the boy is willing to get married without dowry. What are the family going to think? Something's wrong with this boy. How can he be so cheaply available, right? So, and then what happens is they reject the boy, unfortunately. So this mentality of, if it costs, it's valuable. It's free? No, it's not. It's nothing there. See, that's one thing why we can't charge for this, because the moment we charge, then ego comes into play, right? There's like an agenda behind the back. There's some silent elephant in the room. So that doesn't cause a genuine teaching. But if you put it for free, then people say, this can't be good, like who would invest their time, right? There's got to be some agenda. They're doing this for some reason. They're trying to, do something in the future. So there's really no way out of it. That's why we say you need faith, right? Well, we can't rationalize it to people. So for such reason, Krishna is going to say, Ashraddhana Purushaha Dharma Syasya. In other words, many lack the Shraddha in the efficacy of Ishvara Jnanam. I don't believe it. I don't believe the effectiveness in this knowledge. I don't think it's going to help my life. I'm going to use something that's going to offer me a quick fix. Then what happens to such people who have lack of faith? Aprapya mam. They lose opportunity to attain me, capital Me, that means Ishvara. That means the unlimited ananda and security. That means the very thing that we're looking for, unlimited security and happiness, is the very thing that we lose the opportunity to be privileged to because of lack of faith. So suppose now you say, yeah, that's fine, but I've got my next life. I can hang out today. I can hang out in this life, go to Disneyland, one more life, why not? It's a valid question, right? Because people sometimes think like this. The answer is, first of all, there's no guarantee that you will be a Manushya, Janma, next birth. That means maybe an animal or an insect. And second of all, even more realistically, is there's no guarantee there's going to be a conducive environment. So one may be reborn, sure, but why should I depend on luck? So that's out of the question. And finally, what is the state of affairs for such a disbeliever? Nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. I said the word samsara, you can already infer what's going to be the answer. In other words, these folks remain in the grips of spell-binding Maya. They keep receiving more of the same, a new life of sameness. And what do? As Paramarthananda would say, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. In other words, they acquire, lose, acquire, lose, acquire, lose. All life like this. And this becomes a struggle for lifetimes until the person finally has some sense knocked into their heads. They also receive fresh doses of things like disease, decay, separation, loss, and then to round it off, death. But then the next life, the same process repeats. So this is the cost of not having faith in the scriptures. O Arjuna, those people who have no faith in this teaching continue certainly in the course of samsara, fraught with death without attaining me. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matstani sarva bhutani nachaham teshvavastitaha. Now Krishna has finished glorifying Ishvara Jnanam in the previous verse, and his primary qualification is Shraddha, which we have discussed previous week, which means, if you remember, except faith, I said another word, Shraddha, or something about the mind. A non-critical mind, which means a mind that instead of arguing, that is quarreling, it instead finds ways to match its own understanding with what the Shastra is saying. That's the heart of inquiry. It is not to be a researcher and say, well, here's what they got wrong, and here's what one school of thought says, and here's how Buddhism is a little more accurate, here's how Taoism says something better. That's not the point. Our job is not to be a researcher. That's a scholar. Our job is to just simply, by faith, okay, they've already done this themselves. Why should I just be another person who does more inquiry into what's right or wrong? And also in verse 1, this Shraddha, non-critical mind, is called Anasuya. Now, do you know the symbolism of Anasuya? Anasuya means, in that case, it meant faith. But it also means absence of ill will, or absence of envy, or absence of judgment. Now, Anasuya is actually, in the Vedic literature, a wife of the sage called Atri. And Atri is a realized sage, and his wife's name is Anasuya. So Atri means is the one who has conquered the three. Now you're going to say the three what? Gunas. The gunas, exactly. In other words, he has conquered the grips of Guna. So obviously he has conquered Maya's grip. And also he has conquered the three bodies. That means Sthula, Karana, and Sukshma Sharira. Suppose he has not conquered these three, then the wife becomes, you remove the word an, like Atma, Anatma, Asuya, not Asura or Rakshasa, but Asuya, which means grumbling displeasure. So this is the case if one is at the grips of samsara. Now this doesn't mean wife, it can also mean like the world. So the world becomes a grumbling displeasure for the individual because it is a constant mixture of sukham and dukkham. In verse 4, Krishna is going to expound the essence of the Upanishads. It's going to be between verses 4 to 10, and it's one of the important sections of the entire Gita. So we need to pay attention and take notes down. So he's going to define glories or expound glories of Ishvara, especially of Ishvara's higher nature. And the first definition, you can put on your paper, glory or definition 1 of Ishvara's higher nature. That means paraprakriti or consciousness. And that is avyakta. Avyakta means not perceptible to any sense organs. This means I can't perceive the higher nature. In contrast, the word vyakta obviously will mean perceptible to sense organs. So for example, if object has, when I say object, what do I mean? Lower or higher nature?
Lower.
Why not higher?
Because it's gross.
Because we just said avyakta, it is beyond sense perception, so it has to be lower. So if an object has property of sound, then it is perceptible to the ear. If object has property of touch or tactile feedback, then it is known through the skin. If an object has shape or color or form, then it is noticed through the eye. If an object has the property of taste, like sweetness, saltiness, bitterness, souriness, then it is detected through tongue. If an object has the property of smell, like fragrance or aroma, then it is recognized through the nose. So what does this mean? It means that if anyone ever claims they have experienced Ishvara, God, in any way imaginable, even if it's subtle, even in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, even in meditation, then what are they talking about? Lower or higher? Lower nature. Because we've just established anything detected, recognized, perceived, noticed is still vyaktam. It is perceptible to the sense organs, whether directly or imagined or in a deep meditation. It is still known to the subject. So in other words, from a Vedantic standpoint, if one ever says, I have felt God, or I heard God today, or he is in touch with me and I am in touch with him, then from our standpoint, they're only talking about the lower nature, not the absolute. Because the problem is, the moment you say, I know him, I know the self, instantly in that moment I've objectified it as something that is known to the subject. In other words, we're still then talking about sublime Maya, which inspires great awe. That's what sublime means. That means I have gone into a great state of nirvikalpa or and stay there, or savikalpa even, and then it was so beautiful, there was nothing. So just the fact that we're saying that means we're still objectifying the experience. So now how do we experience, in quotes, Ishvara? How do we experience the infinite, the higher nature?
You can't, because you are that.
So Ishvara is not an object of experience first, to acknowledge that. Why? Because we've just established avyaktam, non-perceptible. So it means no experience can ever verify or ever get me in contact with the infinite. So Ishvara is then the ever available conscious subject. And what is the nature of this conscious subject? That which illumines, that which validates. Right now we are listening to these words and looking at the board. And all of the data is coming into our minds. And this mind, as I've demonstrated on the board, is indeed a branch of knowledge. And it is being illumined and validated by the self, the higher nature of Ishvara. What else is illumined? Or what else is validated? Anything that we remember, any kind of memory of back pain, or got pain today. What is validating that back pain? Is it prana? Is it prana that's validating? Okay, why not? Why is prana not that which validates our experience? Because prana is that which makes the body sentient. So someone can say now, no, it's prana that's actually making us alive. It's making us think. If prana was the consciousness principle, validates or illumines our experience, then what would happen when you've got like digestion issues? Because then prana is obviously affected. So in that case, then you wouldn't be suddenly able to validate the world, because your prana will be too sick and contaminated by the stomach digestion pain. Or what if we're like in a hospital and sick? How do we know about the body being sick, even though prana is non-functional or it's degraded in its quality? Because we are not that which prana is. They're two different orders of reality. Any other ways how we explain this?
It's a sensation rather than the sensory organ.
Yeah, so we say my body is sick, or there is pain. So that means we're validating something. In other words, we're objectifying it. My digestion, I'm objectifying prana. My circulation, my high blood pressure today, I'm objectifying things. And we already established we cannot be what we objectify. The possessor can never be the possession. The knower can never be the known. And something else, great news, Lord will never come. Did you know that? That's news. Because some of us are waiting for Lord to come. So what do we say? Lord will never come. Why? Why will Lord? Because somewhere for the Messiah, right? He's got to come. But we say he's never going to come. Why not?
Because then you can go already.
Yeah, because he never left. So in other words, we need to accept and own up to what is already true right now. We already established that Ishvara is Paraprakriti, the consciousness principle, which is the truth of the whole universe. Okay, now glory of Ishvara's nature 2. This is glory 2. And Krishna is going to say, Tatam idam sarvam jagat. He is pervaded all over. This is called the present past participle. He is from the present, he is pervaded all over. So what does all over mean? how do you tell what a mountain is? How do you identify a mountain?
The previous knowledge.
Yeah, boundaries, so excellent word. In other words, by looking at a mountain, I can see a certain edge on one side and an edge on the other side. So obviously the edge itself says what? That mountain, which is a form, cannot be all over because it is dictated by the boundaries which makes up the mountain. So what does all over mean? It certainly cannot mean form, because to identify a form through your five senses, you're constantly validating it through boundaries, like it's there and it's ending there. This all overness thus has to be Ishvara, consciousness, which is divisionless, formless. Therefore, it is boundaryless, doesn't have any boundaries. Now, something that doesn't have boundaries, what's the definition of that? Because before answering, what do we say? The mountain is not all over. Why? Because it is limited by the boundaries. But then Ishvara is all over because it is boundless or boundaryless, therefore it is all over. In other words, what doesn't have form, what doesn't have boundaries, is what is all-pervading. So to say all-pervading, does that now mean that Ishvara is elsewhere? No, it has to mean then what? All-pervading. Is your body excluded from all-pervading? Is our minds excluded from all-pervading? It's really funny because people say, Ishvara is all-pervading, but then I go to the temple to look for Ishvara. I mean, what does all-pervading mean? It is already right here, right now. That means I'm not apart from it. I'm not separate from it. I'm included. Now, question. Trick question. If someone asks you, suppose they're an innocent person, they've never heard this before, but they believe in God, they're a decent Samaritan. Hey, is God in heaven? Before you answer, think. Hey, is God in heaven?
Yes.
Yes.
Think.
Not only.
Ah, okay. Now suppose a child asked you, hey, is God in heaven? And you replied yes. What would that actually do? That would imply that God is not here right now, and yes, God is only in heaven. So in other words, I would validate their own ignorance if I just say yes and I put a full stop there. So how do we solve this?
Yes, and everywhere else.
With one simple word, we say, yes, God is also in heaven. So what does that say? It subtly implies that God is also here now, from the very place where that question is being posed. Next question. What do we mean when we say, in the light of knowledge, so you're not thinking, oh, that's a dualistic word, merging with Ishvara? Now, this is an educated person, so they already have knowledge of Ishvara Jnanam. But how do we explain merging with Ishvara? What does this mean?
Well, past the three gunas are moved further.
Yeah, and?
It's a point of view from the self, from the jiva.
Yeah.
Then you're merging, but you're merged already.
Okay, now that word already, in other words, I am removing the idea, the notion that I was apart. In other words, merging is dropping the notion of division equals merging. So we're not using this word as a dualistic, as in it's over there and I'm here and now we're kind of merged. It's just, it was always one, it was never not other than what it is, but I just dropped the notion that was denying me from the fruits or the realization of that fact. So by me assimilating that fact and removing thus the notion, then it's that we can call merging. Okay, glory 3 of Ishvara's higher nature. Krishna says, Matstani sarva bhutani. The whole world is resting in me. I am the supporter of the entire universe. I am the supportless supporter. The causeless cause. They're the same words. Supportless supporter, causeless cause. That means nothing supports me in order to support the universe. Nothing causes me to cause the universe. I am causeless. And because of my causeless nature, I cause everything. I pervade the universe in my unmanifest. Number 1. Remember we spoke about unmanifest number 1 and number 2. Number 2 is unmanifest apara prakriti. Number one is Paraprakriti, consciousness. That means I pervade the whole universe, the entire world, as consciousness itself. Okay, so glory 1, revision. I am formless. Glory 2, revision. I am all-pervading. Glory 3, revision, because I am the supporter of all. Even of those who deny and put the name of Lord down and say, Lord doesn't exist. I am even a supporter of those. Just like the air is a supporter of both the sinner and the saint. Without the air, neither can do what they do. The saint can't bless a person without air. The sinner can't sin and do harm to another without air. So they're both depending on the same principle. In the same way, they both are depending on Ishvara alone. All this universe is pervaded by me, whose form is unmanifest. All beings are in me. Still, I am not in them. Nacha matstani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram bhuta brnacha bhutastaha mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Okay, continuing glory number 3. Bhutani namatstani. In fact, the world and beings do not rest in me. World is not in me at all. Does that sound like a contradiction? Krishna said all beings are in me. I'm like space that holds everything. Now this shloka, all beings are not in me. So the question is, how do I resolve this now? Shankaracharya is going to pose a inquiry into this statement, and he's going to say, starting like this. X, just when I say X, it just means any object. X exists. It's manifest. Okay? X exists. Next moment, X doesn't exist. It is unmanifest. Does it exist or does it not exist?
It exists in potential or in manifest.
Okay, what if I ask this? Where is your cup? Your favorite cup? Now notice how now suddenly the cup came. But before I instigated the question, the thing about cup was virtually non-existent. So one moment it doesn't exist, X is unmanifest, and the next moment it manifests. So the question is, which one is real? Is it real when it doesn't exist, or is it real when it does exist?
When it does exist.
It's in the mind. But
Otherwise
both.
it's in the mind. It's memory.
No, that's still real.
No, because if it does exist, it's what? It is vyakta, it is perceptible to my mind. Because I just said cup, and you said, cup. In other words, it was still known to someone other than the condition of the manifest and the condition of the unmanifest. So from one angle, an object exists. But when the circumstances change, the object no longer exists. In other words, it becomes seemingly existing. Now, what does seemingly existing mean? Where is the cup now? Yeah, it's in your mind. But the moment I change the topic, like your parent, and we start talking about parents and so on, then we recognize that that cup, even though it was visible, it was known, now by the virtue of it no longer being there, it becomes what? Seemingly existent. While it's existent, we call it existent, do we not? We say, yeah, it exists. But do we still call it exists after it no longer exists? No. From that angle, we call it seemingly existent because it existed while it was present. While it was present. As soon as the topic changes, it is no longer present. So then now go, so this object was seemingly existing. It seemed to exist while I was looking at it, but the moment the new moment came, then it went away. Thus, everything we see around us, all appearances are seemingly existing. So this means that I am, says Krishna, speaking as Ishvara, independent of the world. I do not depend whether the world exists, whether the cup exists, or whether the cup does not exist. I remain independent of manifest and unmanifest, of existent and non-existent. Because just to speak about the condition of manifest and unmanifest, that means what? You're other than the condition of manifest and unmanifest. You're other than the condition of existent and non-existent. Is that clear? Okay, example. Is your nighttime dream real at the time of dreaming?
Yes.
So if there's a nightmare, is it legit? Is it giving you legit emotions? Yeah, we can agree with that?
Yeah.
I hope that you can remember your dreams a little bit. Okay. So during the dream, we experience authentic emotions. The world is absolutely real. There is no question of even inquiring whether the world is real or not. In fact, if I do inquire, it's goofy, right? It's like, why are you inquiring? Everything's fine. This is the world. But then what happens when we wake up? That means from a higher standpoint, that world which was just a moment ago completely authentic, completely legit and genuine in what it provided, what it gave me, what I received, in one moment it no longer exists. It existed, and now from a higher angle it no longer existed. In other words, from a lower angle it existed, from a higher angle it seemingly exists.
So the higher angle isn't the fact that you're awake, it's the fact that you're aware.
For now, we're just going to keep it, the higher angle will be the waking and the lower angle will be the dream. We're not going to go into consciousness now because just keep it at this example. So from the higher angle, that is the waking state, I recognize that the lower angle, reality, was actually seemingly real. But while the awareness, while the subject was immersed in the lower reality, what happened? The experience was completely, seemingly real. So from the lower order of reality, which we call, in this example, the dream, the world is real. That's a present tense statement. The world is real. From the higher standpoint, from the higher order of reality, in this example, the waking, how does the statement change? The world was apparently real. And this lower order of reality is called Mithya. Important word. Mithya means apparently real. It is experientially available, but factually non-existent. The dream is experientially available, yes. It's genuine, yes. But from a different angle, it is known to be factually non-existent. So what does the lower order mean? It means it invokes genuine responses, right? I can't say this is false, otherwise I'm lying. There's a genuine, like I need help. And the Upanishads calls this Sat Asadpyam Anirvachaniyam. Anirvachaniyam means inexplicable. In other words, Mithya is the inexplicable reality which we cannot define. It's neither non-existent nor is it existent. In other words, simply, you can't say it's not there. Why?
Because it's there, because you're aware of it.
Yeah, I'm experiencing it. It's genuine, right? I can't say my pain is not here. That would be a lie. So you can't say it is not there because it frightens me. But at the same time, you can't say that it is there. Why? Because from a higher angle, it's known to be, or it's no longer seen as real. So I can't say it is existent, but I also can't say it is non-existent. Another example. Suppose you win the lottery in your dream. Okay, very happy, ecstatic. And everything's great now, all problems solved, right? And what happens? There's genuine emotion, right? How valid is that money, when we wake up, completely meaningless, invalid. This is what we call mithya. One moment it was absolutely real from a lower order of reality, and the next moment it is completely invalidated as apparently real. So what Krishna is pointing out is that the world does exist. That's some serious news. You know, someone's going, no, the world doesn't exist. It's all an illusion. However, what's the however part?
Mithya.
It's mithya. It is the lower order of reality. It is apparently real. And even though it is apparently real, it invokes genuine emotions, responses in our life. From the ajnani's body, mind, intellect standpoint, the world is existent. From a jnani's BMI standpoint, the world is non-existent. Seemingly existent. Why?
Because he knows it's changing.
Yeah, so in other words, owing to their education, Brahma Vichara and all of the qualifications, Vairagyam, they know that even though it seems to be real, it is actually not real. But for an ignorant person, it's all real. Thus, we put so much investment into the world, making it according to our desires. In other words, the world for both a jnani and ajnani is mithya jagat. For both of them. Except one of them knows that it is apparent, the other one takes it as absolutely real. It's called vyavaharika reality. So mithya jagat equals vyavaharika, apparently real, lower order of reality. And from Brahman's standpoint, the world is, what am I going to say?
Mithya.
Completely non-existent. Is your dream going on right now? It's, no. What dream? Like, I had to bring this topic up for you to even answer that. So the dream is completely non-existent right now. There's no dream. Like, what dream world? In the same way, this world, this Vyavaharika, is completely non-existent from Brahman's standpoint. So concluding the first line, Krishna says, Nacha matstani bhutani pashyame yogam aishwaram. May you appreciate my higher yoga. Higher yoga means higher reality. And this is called Paramarthika or Brahman, the absolute reality. In other words, may you know that from my higher order of reality, from my higher yoga, the lower order of reality, that is the Vyavaharika that we just explained, is non-existent. However, from the Jivatma's point of view, the empirical reality means Vyavaharika, transactional reality, is seemingly existent. Okay, let's summarize the glories. Glory 1 is I am formless. Glory 2 is I am all-pervading. Glory 3 is I am the substratum of the entire universe.
So the supporter of the world is the same as this? No.
Yeah, I am the substratum or the supporter of the world, yeah. Okay, now we get on to glory number 4. Mama Atma Bhuta Bhavanaha Bhuta Bhrn. Here the Atma indicates the I am, then consciousness. I am the Srishti Sthiti Laya Karanam of the entire universe. What does this mean? I am the creator, sustainer, and destroyer of the entire dream world, the Vyavaharika reality. Just like, for example, I, as the waker, we're not speaking about us as the waker, I am the supporter of the dream, I am the sustainer of my dream, and I also gobble up the dream, I swallow the dream the moment there is waking. So the entire dream world, which I took as real, which I had genuine emotions, and I had genuine confrontations and loving moments, all of that I swallow in one moment. And yet, while I was sustaining it, while it was frightening me and making me happy, I was taking it to be absolutely real. Upon the waking, it is known to be apparently real. So the entire universe is sustained, it is created, and it is destroyed by me, says Krishna. Which means that you as the waker are the supporter of the dream world. You are independent of the dream world, and the dream world depends on you. You don't depend on the dream world. Because without you, can there be a dream world? Without you, can there be all of these wonderful moments in the dream, you know, of something you can share with someone else?
So we're actually getting a glimpse of Ishvara every day.
Yeah. Microcosmic, macrocosmic relationship. It is right in the open. Every day we see it. This relationship that we've been speaking about between the waker and the dreamer, between the creator, sustainer, and swallower, and the world which they create, sustain, and destroy, this is called Satya-Mithya Sambandha. Or in the Upanishad language, we call it Adhisthana Abhyasa Sambandha. Substratum, Abhyasa means projection, Sambandha. In other words, the relationship between the substratum and the projected. So just like this wall is independent of the projected, this wall we can call Satya, because we said Satya-Mithya. So Satya does not depend on the projection, but the projection depends on Satyam. And thus the Satyam is independent of the Mithya. But since it seems to be like they're one and the same, we call it thus Satya-Mithya Sambandha relationship. For example, it's more down-to-earth language. Suppose we have 20 ornaments on the carpet, and each ornament is saying how I'm better than you. Like I've got more, I've got something bigger. And oh, I want a piece of that ornament, right? That's a beautiful ornament. I want to marry that ornament. Or oh, I don't like that. It's got more like flair than I do. So from the standpoint of each ornament, each one of them is different, no doubt. So the bangle looks at itself different from the necklace different from the ring. So from the point of view of all of them, comparing them to themselves, they are certainly different. But what are they actually talking about, despite their differences? So every difference they talk about is actually just talking about what? The one same goal which inheres in every single one of their features, which they were quarreling about. So this is what we're talking about. No matter what I say or how I say it, it is still of that one same substance, Satyam. But owing to the power of Maya, it's able to create apparent differences, which I then take as real, and those attributes then I end up talking about. But what am I only talking about? The one same Satyam. And that Satyam, you are, I am, consciousness. So summary that Krishna is saying is, I am Bhuta Bhavanaha. In other words, I am the projector of the world. I am Bhuta Bharn, sustainer of the projection. Not only do I project the world, but I also sustain the projection. This is the projection. It's being sustained. And also, I am the swallower of the entire whole universe. In one moment, including time and space, in one moment, time, space, differences, it all goes. Just like, for example, the spider creates a wonderful world called the web. You see the web spider? So intricate and complicated and very smart. So very intelligent creature, nimitta karanam, right? The intelligent cause. And out of this intelligent cause, which is also what the web, upadana karanam, the material cause, comes a very well-designed web called the universe. And then if you actually know that spiders not only take their web and project their web, create their web, but they also then swallow their web back into themselves. In other words, as though a spider or like a spider, I create the universe that we're all experiencing now. This is also part of this universe. That part is everything, the writing, your hand, the light, everything, the sound is that projection. I sustain it, and I also swallow it in 1 second. Just like you swallow your entire dream. Now let's raise an objection, and this is probably not going to get brought up, but I'll raise it anyway. How is it that Brahman can be without this world when there is a world? Okay, what happens when a Jivan Muktaha dies and they are at one-ment with the whole? What happens to this world? Is that a valid objection?
Yeah.
Should I bring it up?
Yeah, definitely.
How can Brahman be free of this world if we have a world? Here's the answer. Right now, at some time in this world, suppose South Africa, where it's dark, there is a person sleeping and having a dream, right? Because it's dark there. And for them, this dream is completely real. Okay, it's valid. They're having genuine emotions and responses to a world which that Jivatma is finding itself in. Understand? Yeah, so far or clear? Are you having that dream?
No.
No.
That's the answer.
Realized person. That's what happens.
In other words, we experience it every single day. There is a world, an entire world for someone right now, and yet you're completely free of all of that suffering and all of that sukham dukkham mixture. So in the same way, what's it like for Brahman? It's exactly like you already just seen. This is called Satya-Mithya relationship. In Brahman, there is a Maya power that is able to create a world for those jivas which need to do what? Exhaust their karma, so that never again a new world gets created. Let's put it another way. Suppose you know the story of suppose you're walking, you're tired, and there's a well, and it's twilight, and I want to get some water, right? And then I come near, and then there's a rope that's entangled, and it looks like a genuine snake, right? And it has a genuine what? Response. It creates a genuine response for me. So I create a whole world that coincides with what? My ignorance of that which I am not seeing. So is that snake actually on the rope? Is there any connection between the snake and the rope?
No.
Zero connection whatsoever. Is there any connection between Brahman and this Vyavaharika reality? No. Zero connection. So only to one's ignorance, the world gets created in order to exhaust punya and papa karma. What creates the world? Nimitta karanam, upadana karanam. Maya's 3 gunas.
If the rope wasn't there,
yeah,
the snake wouldn't be there either.
Exactly. In other words, we call that borrowed reality. So the snake is borrowing its existence from the rope. Without the rope, there is no snake. So in actuality, there is no snake.
Ocean?
Yeah.
Waves.
Yeah, we can also use that analogy of, for example, we often think that there's a form, right? There's form there, there's form there, there's form there, and they're all different in shapes and sizes, and we constantly talk about that wave. They're so high and so glorious, but I'm such a small wave, right? And so we're constantly talking about these features and giving reality to different forms in the world. And yet, at the essence of all of these forms that we keep on seeing and giving reality to, and even talking about right now, are nothing but the one essential H2O, which inheres the entire and all forms that we as waves talk about. So in that sense, the connecting principle is there is only H2O here. There is no ocean and there is neither the wave, because both the ocean and the wave borrow their existence of nothing but H2O. Wherever there is wave, wherever there is ocean, that's exactly where there is H2O. This is called Satya-Mithya Sambandha relationship. In fact, the beings are not in me. See my divine yoga, my higher reality. I myself am the creator of the beings and the sustainer of the beings, but I am not in the beings. Yatha kashasthito nityam vayuh sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani matsthanit yupadharaya. Summaries of glories. Glory 1, formless. Glory 2, all-pervading. Glory 3, substratum of the Mithya universe. Glory 4, I am the creator, sustainer, destroyer of the entire Mithya Jagat. Glory number 5, asangatva, detachedness. I remain unsullied, uncontaminated, untamed. And this is going to address a doubt which has come in verse 5, whether you know about it or not. What Krishna said, the whole universe is resting in Ishvara. Now, what's inside the universe? A lot of punya and papa. So does that also mean that all of the impurities and the purities are also contaminating Ishvara? Does this mean that Ishvara, the poor Lord, has to take all of our sins and all of our good deeds? Okay, that's the potential doubt. For example, suppose we take a dirty piece of coal and I put it and I rub it against the clothes. The stain is going to remain, right? So wherever I go, the stain is going to be there until I change the clothes. So it seems as though that Ishvara has to wait for its dissolution after one day of Brahmaji, and then it's going to hopefully go to a washing machine and then come back and then start fresh, right? So this is a potential doubt. Could our sins, could our punya and papa also contaminate or sully Ishvara? And Krishna says, even though I accommodate everything, the whole universe, I myself remain unaffected, uncontaminated by the accommodated. For example, suppose you have a golden angel, right? We all love golden angels. And the golden angel turns into a golden middle finger. The root sign. So one moment it was a golden angel, and how do we speak about it? Well, we appreciated it, right? We welcomed it. We all sat together and had... And the next moment, that same gold is the golden finger. Now, what has changed? Nama Rupa. Has that sullied the gold itself? The gold has nothing to do with whatever the form is. Another example, two different words on the spectrum. We know the difference, no doubt. What's the same?
Emotion.
Those letters.
Huh?
They all
Spelling.
What else is the same?
E. The 4 letters.
One more thing. I'm looking for something
For
else.
the emotions.
I'm looking for something else. I'm looking for something else.
The contradictory.
I'm looking for something else.
Both words.
Huh?
Language or writing.
I'm looking for the ink.
Okay.
So in other words, the same ink is in this nama rupa of love, which we all love, which we all adore, we all welcome, but the exact same ink is in the hate. Now, does this ink define according to the love form or according to the hate form? Does that define the ink?
No.
Yeah, you know the answer to that. So no matter what form we have or what form we speak of, it doesn't touch Brahman in any way. Thus, in this way, Lord remains, Ishvara remains unsullied, untainted, uncontaminated. And Krishna, as an example, also from the verse, uses space. Okay, why does Krishna use space as a metaphor in this verse? As a metaphor for Ishvara?
It's also
It's
very
easy for us to
Okay, Madhu said all-pervading. So what's the commonality between Ishvara and space? If there was a commonality, what would it be? Number one, all-pervading, definitely. And what else is space? Does it have form? So 2 points, formless and it is all-pervading. Thus, space is the closest metaphor we have to compare in this world of this apparent appearance to the formless, because they both share these attributes. Can you burn space with evil fire? Not calling fire evil. Can you wet space with goody water? No. Can you cut space? No. So in other words, you can't burn space. You can't wet space with goodness. You can't burn it with contaminations. Nor can we touch it in any way, no matter what we do. So in that same way, space remains completely free of whatever thoughts we say about space. We can speak about space, we can have religious wars about space, we can drop atomic bombs about space, and we can have peace negotiations about space. The space care has nothing to do with anything that we do. And in the same way, thus, Lord is neither good, neither bad, neither benevolent, neither malevolent, neither beautiful, neither ugly. Why? Why did I say neither to everything? If you have another word, I'll just say neither that also.
It's in everything.
Attributeless.
Yeah, it's attributeless. In other words, if I say Lord is, because the common things say Lord is loving, compassionate, is benevolent, does that have an opposite? No, it does. Love, hate, compassionate, lack of. So whatever label, saguna label I give it, it is still dvandva. It is pairs of opposites. It has a polarity. It may not be immediately available, but nonetheless it has a polar opposite. In other words, no matter what we define Lord as, it is actually not defining Lord. It's not defining Ishvara.
I suppose that's why duality came with the idea of Satan, didn't it? Because that's the lord of the dark side.
Yeah, Satan can also mean desire. The desire that always gets us into trouble and causes a lot of papam. So the summary of the verse goes like this. Air may be contaminated by a foul-smelling or a pleasant fragrance, no doubt. But since air is in space, it doesn't contaminate space itself. Suppose space can get contaminated and there is a foul-smelling odor in space, and space got contaminated. What would happen?
Total chaos. There wouldn't be anything left.
In other words, if never again could you have a different smell in that same region. It would be like a block, in like middle of nowhere, and suddenly you walk and you hit this invisible odor, right?
Where would we?
Right. It's like
You're right.
you can't put oil. Total chaos, right? You can put so many sprays and deodorants, it would just remain in one block. But we know that's not true. The moment the circumstances change, space is available to offer something new. In the same way, says Krishna, Sarvani Bhutani Matstani. Good people, bad people, good smells, false smells do not touch me. And the second interpretation of this, to make it a little bit more personal, a little bit more applicable to us, I pervades everything. So suppose there's a red wall here. What do we say? I see red wall, right? Now suppose I repaint the wall and make it blue. What do we say now? Why aren't you saying red wall? Because you are free of the red. You're free of the preceding thought, making space, making way for the new thought. Otherwise, if consciousness was subject to change, then by the time I paint this wall from blue to red, or a new color, then you would still see what? The old color. You could never again see something new. So in the same way, I pervade everything, and yet I stay free of the attributes which I am awareing as my nature being the self. Red wall, I say red. Blue wall, I say blue. Images of beauty, roses, I see that. Images of something other than that, I also see that. I'm always free of what I pervade. Finally, matstanit yupadharaya. May you be convinced of this, please. May you inquire into this, may you integrate this, may you understand this as the truth. Just as great all-pervading wind is ever present in space, in the same manner, all beings are in me. May you understand this. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.